and control mechanism of the State Council. Yesterday, President Xi Jinping paid a special visit to Wuhan, Hubei province, to inspect on the control measures, and he emphasizes that stability is the top priority. Environment will hold the key to stability, and the sound environment is the key to happiness. And that's why this is for today's press conference the theme. So we have with us Mr. Zhao Chunying from the Ministry of Ecology and Environment, Deputy Director General Mr. Liu Lifeng from the Housing and Urban and Rural Construction Ministry, and also Madam Li Suying from the Capital Medical University. And they will take questions concerning the medical waste treatment and the environment. Let me share with you the updates of the epidemic. Yesterday, China's mainland reported newly increased confirmed cases 24, new fatal cases 22, all in Hubei, and new suspected cases 31. Yesterday's newly increased cured and discharged cases 1,578, close contacts removed from medical observation 3,235, and the severe case number dropped by 302. By the end of yesterday, China's mainland reported that the remaining confirmed cases 16,145, including 4,492 severe cases. In accumulative terms, the number of cases cured and discharged 61,475, fatal cases 3,158, reported confirmed cases 80,778, and remaining suspected cases 285. In accumulative terms, close contacts traced 675,886, and close contacts still under medical observation 14,607. For Hubei, the newly increased confirmed cases 13, all of them in Wuhan. The newly increased cured and discharged cases 1,471, including 1,212 in Wuhan. The new fatal cases 22, including 19 in Wuhan. The remaining confirmed cases 15,671, including 14,514 in Wuhan. Among this figure, we have 4,412 severe cases, including 4,217 in Wuhan. In total, the number of cured and discharged cases 49,056, including 33,041 in Wuhan. Fatal cases 3,046, including 2,423 in Wuhan, and confirmed cases 67,773, including 49,978. The newly increased suspected cases 6, all in Wuhan. The remaining suspected cases 198, including 192 in Wuhan. Yesterday, the newly increased reported imported cases numbered 10, 6 in Beijing, 2 in Shanghai, 1 in Shandong, and 1 in Gansu, respectively. By the end of yesterday, in total, the imported confirmed cases numbered 79. In total, 177 confirmed cases were reported from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan, including 120 from Hong Kong SAR, 10 from Macau SAR, and 47 from the Taiwan region. Outside Hubei, all the provinces reported 11 confirmed cases, including 10 imported cases. The newly increased suspected cases 25, and there is no fatal case, and the severe case number dropped by 13. The daily increase of confirmed and suspected cases for 5 days in a row have been kept at double digits, and outside Wuhan, the whole country has only had 2 cases, and we are enjoying a sound momentum. But the problem is the confirmed cases in Wuhan and Hubei province as a whole remain at a high level, and there are also uncertainties in other countries. So we need to continue our efforts and strengthen our determination and confidence to win the final battle against the epidemic. Now we will have the Q&A. Please focus on today's theme and please identify yourself. Now the floor is open. First question on the right, on the front row, the first reporter close to the aisle, please. Thank you. China Media Group with CCTV. My question is, since the epidemic broke out, especially in the rapid rise of the epidemic, the medical waste has also been on the rapid rise. Also, the COVID-19 is an emerging new infection, and what are the measures to manage the medical waste? Now we will have Mr. Zhao to answer the question. Okay. Thank you for the reporter with CCTV. Medical waste and the wastewater treatment are issues of common concern. Following the Central Committee of CPC and the State Council's arrangement, the Ministry of Ecology and Environment have focused on 100%. The first 100% is that for all the medical facilities, their environmental monitoring and the services should be 100% covered. And the second 100% is for the medical waste and the medical wastewater should be 100% timely treated. And we make specific details to manage such waste and wastewater. First, for medical waste, we have realized the appropriate handling and the treatment in a timely manner. The overall processing capacity was 4,900 tons on average, but now this figure has been increased by 23% to 6,022 tons per day. So we have been relieved from the heavy workload in this regard. And by the end of March the 9th, the whole country has collected and treated over 3,000 tons. And the COVID-19 related medical waste reached 468.9 tons. The whole nation had treated more than 3,000 tons of medical waste. As you know, because of the statistical collection and usually the medical waste borne on the day would be recorded or would be noted on the second day. But the medical waste was actually treated on the same day. Starting from January the 20th, in accumulative terms, altogether 142,000 tons of medical waste were treated. In terms of the medical wastewater, the overall operation was very stable. By the end of March the 9th, we have dynamically managed the designated hospitals who numbered over 2,700, and also we have monitored and treated more than 6,000 quarantine places, and also the relevant localities and the venues.
Across the country, 328,000 person times made an investigation of 138,000 times, Accumulatively, we've found places where there were no sewage water treatment or where there were treatment facilities, but the operation was not normal and the terminal decontamination efforts were not sufficient. All these problems have been corrected. In designated hospitals and the mass quarantine places after the disinfection, the sewage water entered into the sewage water treatment plants for further processing. These sewage water treatment plants also have been operating normally. That's my answer. Thank you. Next question, please. Journalist from the first row on the left side, please. Thank you. Hong Kong China Review. Sanitation workers have also been the heroes in harm's way. They've been working from early morning to deep night. Apart from the daily sanitation, they have to be involved in disinfection and decontamination. So how are they ensured to have a break, and how are their rights protected? I'd like to ask DDG Liu Lifeng to take the question. Thank you for your concern in the life and the work of sanitation workers. Their work covers a wide scope, from the daily sanitation to the treatment of certain medical waste and the treatment of the secretions. Since the outbreak, Mohud has been implementing the guidance from President Xi and the central government. We've urged local housing, urban and rural development authorities to ensure the environment and the sanitation in urban areas and also rural areas. 1.8 million sanitation workers, 90% have been working on their posts. During the same period of previous year, it was 80% in Hubei province. Daily sanitation workers exceeded a total number of 80,000 plus. Apart from the daily sanitation work, sanitation workers have also undertaken responsibility in cleaning the medical health institutions and the mass quarantine places. They have shown the solidarity spirit, and they have undertaken great responsibility. Some say they are the most beautiful sight along the streets of Wuhan. They are beautifying the cities. They are the conquerors. They are the heroes in harm's way. I believe they deserve such praises. You've also asked questions on the resumption of their business and their work. As I've already mentioned, the profession has very special features, so almost 90% have been working on their posts. For the next steps, localities need to schedule their breaks according to epidemic unfolding. Thank you. Thank you. Next question, please. Journalist from the second row on the left side.
Until now, a total of around 90,000 patients have been diagnosed nationwide. There also has been built in a short time Leishanshan, Huoshanshan, and mobile hospitals. How do these hospitals dispose of a large amount of medical waste to avoid viruses spread in the public? Thank you.
好，请翻译一下问题。
您好，我是中安卫视的记者。疫情发生至今，全国已累计有8万、9万左右的确诊患者。那新建的雷神山、火神山医院、方舱医院都是短期内建好的。请问这些医院是如何处置大量的医疗垃圾的？如何去避免病毒污染物发生公共卫生的威胁？
好，我们请李素英女士来回答这个问题。
谢谢你的。
I'd like to ask Physician Li Suying from UN Hospital to take the question. Thank you for your question. The central government has made the deployment that all COVID-19 patients must be admitted. So we very quickly established the Leishanshan, Huoshenshan, and the mobile camping hospitals. These hospitals are designated to take and accept infectious patients. So during the building, we designed it in a way for the taking in of infectious patients. So during the building process, we've set up a designated zone for the treatment of medical wastes. Similar with the arrangements in other designated hospitals, we collect the medical wastes and then transport the medical wastes to the storage zone in the hospitals in a sealed truck. And then the medical waste will be collected by designated entities who are responsible for the treatment of the medical waste. So this has been the consistent practice in treating medical wastes. Thank you. Next question, please. Thank you. With cover news. During the epidemic, many of the general public have been using goggles and masks. Are they considered as medical waste? What are the measures adopted by national government to step up the management over medical waste? I would like to ask physician Li Su-ying to take the question. Goggles and medical masks, when they are used in the designated hospitals for the health professionals to take care of the patients, then they are considered as medical wastes. Thank you. Next question, please. Journalist from the second row on the left side. Thank you. Economic Daily News. There has been a sudden surge in the pressure of treating medical waste. So what have been the measures taken to enhance the capacity in dealing with medical waste in Wuhan and Hubei province? I'd like to thank journalists from the Daily Economic News. Yes, indeed, as you have pointed out, after the outbreak of the epidemic with the surge in patients and cases, there has been a corresponding surge in the medical waste amount. The generation of medical waste prior to the epidemic in Wuhan city was around 40 tons. But as the epidemic came, and with the epidemic unfolding, at the peak, the generation of medical waste reached 2.4 million tons. So during this period, the paramount important thing for us was to enhance the capacity of Wuhan in dealing with medical waste. In Hubei province and adjacent provinces, there were similar difficulties, but the greatest difficulty was found in Wuhan. Ministry of Ecological Environment for 15 times collaborated with provincial and municipal government. We convened video conferences to discuss how we can increase the capacity in dealing with the medical wastes. We've also been mobilizing all communities, all walks of life to support Wuhan by the mobilization of joint efforts. 46 mobile equipments were transported to Wuhan. With the increase of disposal equipment, we saw the increase of the capacity. Meanwhile, apart from hazardous waste, other wastes were also treated. We asked the waste treatment plants to upgrade their capacity in treating wastes. Third, incineration power plants were also involved in the treatment of medical wastes. Most of the medical wastes that were treated in the incineration power plants were the wastes coming from the mass quarantine places. So most of those which went into the incineration plants were not epidemic or COVID-19 related, but still we had rigorous requirements for their incineration.
Furthermore, we have built a new medical waste incineration plant, which has a handling capacity of 300,000 tons. This was built by a state-owned enterprise within 15 days. This plant was put into operation, demonstrating the strength of this SOE. So the handling capacity in Wuhan was increased from the original 50 tons to 263.8 tons every day. Let me also share with you another figure. That is, by March the 9th, in Wuhan, the treatment capacity accounted for over 93.2% of the total handling capacity, which is 263.8 tons. That means this is virtually about all of the treatment capacity that we enjoy. So this is about the medical waste. For wastewater, actually it is also very important in Wuhan. In designated hospitals and the makeshift hospitals, we need to disinfect the wastes and the sewage first. In building the makeshift hospitals, there were also subsidiary construction, including the wastewater and medical waste treatment facility. Also, for the quarantine locations or venues, we need to disinfect the sewage tank. And then the primarily treated wastewater were delivered to the wastewater treatment plants in Wuhan. Based on our online monitoring, these wastewater plants were working properly and they are working as usual. So as the epidemic develops, we are keenly aware of the rapid rise of medical waste and the sewage. But with our intensified efforts, I think it is fair to say that up to now, the treatment of the medical waste and wastewater is quite stable. It has not caused any major hazard on the environment. That's my answer. Thank you. Let's continue. On the right, on the third row, the First Lady reporter, please. Thank you. I'm from Hong Kong Economic Herald. It is reported that the sanitation work has doubled the workload. However, many schools have not been open and many enterprises remain shut. Then, in theory, the household waste should be reduced. Then how can we see the rise of the wastes? Thank you for your question. We will have Mr. Li to answer the question. Thank you. Indeed, during the epidemic, we find the number of permanent residents in the urban areas was reduced, and the household waste was reduced in urban areas. We've made some calculation in some cities for the major and the big ones. It was reduced by 30%. However, the work of the sanitation workers was not reduced. Actually, their workload was doubled due to two reasons. The first, the sanitation workers are getting busier because of the epidemic containment, and also their workload, such as disinfection, has been increased. Take Tianjin as an example. It has been required that the sanitation workers need to disinfect the roads and the streets, and apart from the major roads, they should also clean and disinfect the smaller roads. And the previous frequency was only 1 time a day, but this frequency has been doubled due to the epidemic, and also the waste treatment capacity the actual volume of waste to be treated and disinfected has also increased rapidly. Furthermore, the cities have also asked the sanitation authorities and relevant staff to be engaged in the epidemic response, like the street disinfection, like in Yichang, Zhengzhou, and Mianyang and other cities. The citywide disinfection was done by the sanitation workers. Also, in public places like the supermarkets and the shopping malls, the 2 times a day disinfection and the cleaning was also conducted by the sanitation workers. Also in Wuhan, previously the sanitation workers only were held accountable or responsible to clean the streets, but now they are also requested to transport the wastes to the waste treatment plants. So with these two major reasons, the sanitation workers are now having a much heavier workload. Okay, let's continue on the left. On the third row, the second journalist in white, please. Thank you. With CNR, my question is also about the medical waste. In the early days of the epidemic, some Wuhan hospitals took in hospitalized patients, but there was some delay in the treatment of the medical waste. Is it true to have such problem, and how can such problem be handled or addressed? Thank you. We'll have Madam Li to answer the question. I know this is a question of common concern. As a person with some experience in hospital infection control, I went to Wuhan. I arrived at Wuhan on January the 25th, and the situation you mentioned did exist. There was some backlog of medical waste to be treated, and there was not enough staff to deal with or to treat the medical waste. You know, at that time it was about the Spring Festival holiday, and also the hospital cleaning and disinfection work previously were outsourced. So there was a shortage of human resource to clean and treat the medical waste. Yes, indeed, the situation you described did exist. But later, with the various measures and timely communication, the central guiding team also noticed this problem and had strengthened coordination.
ecological environment departments and housing, urban, rural development departments were also actively engaged in clearing up the outlet of waste treatment so that they don't have to be stockpiled in the yard. The medical institutions have also adopted great measures, including the increase of pay packages for the cleaners. We've also accepted the help from the volunteers, health institutions, and began to pay more attention to the waste storage management. With the adoption of the measures, the cleaning and treatment of medical waste were dealt with timely. We ensured safe and orderly access to medical care. We've also ensured the cleanness of the environment. In all the designated hospitals for the treatment of COVID-19, work on all these fronts have been running smoothly and orderly. Thank you. Director Li was one of the experts on the experts panel sent to Wuhan on between the 25th of January and the 12th of February. She has been working in Wuhan. I'd like to thank her for her great efforts and her sharing of the information. Next question, please. With the CCTV new media, I'm asking on behalf of CCTV netizens. Prior to the epidemic, during the epidemic, many communities began the sealing off management. Will there be changes to the community waste? Will there be a lot of wasted masks? Are there any measures that are different from the daily and regular treatment of the community wastes? I'd like to ask DDG Liu Lifeng to take the question. Thank you for your question. Since the outbreak of that epidemic, we've been collaborating with the sanitation authorities in different localities. According to what we know, after the outbreak of the epidemic, the community wastes have seen differences in their quantity and the places they generated from. In metropolitans, there has been a decrease of the residents because of the Spring Festival. Therefore, the quantity of community wastes have seen some decrease in the quantity in public facility areas, including the restaurants and the catering players. There has been a major decrease of the wastes. Second, there has been an increase in the mass quarantine places and the communities. The timely treatment is essential. Also, we need to treat it very safely after the sealing off of communities for the prevention and control of the epidemic. The sites to collect the community wastes and the routes of the transportation have to be adjusted. There have been an increased number of wasted masks from communities, and there were new requirements for their treatment. We've been collaborating with the local sanitation authorities. Communication was carried out. We've adopted targeted measures. We've urged sanitation workers to change the transportation routes and updated the procedures for treatment. And the sanitation workers who are working in areas where there is a smaller workload can be rescheduled to other places to provide support, enhance the disinfection, and enhance the frequency of collection from communities. Third, we had a rigorous requirement for the classification and categorization of the wastes. The originally listed community wastes were considered as medical wastes, for example, the wasted masks. This has already been mentioned by physician Li, and these medical wastes could not be mixed with ordinary wastes. They must be dealt with independently. Dedicated workers, dedicated trucks and drivers were used for the treatment. Fourth, personal protection equipment and measures have been stepped up on sanitation workers. These 4 measures have been working well in Hubei province. The daily cleaning of the daily garbage has exceeded 14 million tons. The daily generated garbages have been treated on the day, and 100% of the wastes have been decontaminated and detoxified. Next question, please, journalist from the 3rd row on the right side. With china.org.cn, we've noticed that localities have seen certain weakness in the treatment of medical wastes. So how will Ministry of Ecological Environment make up the weakness in the future? I'd like to ask Director Zhao Qingying to take the question. Thank you for your question. Previously, I've already shared with you the weakness in Hubei Provincial and Wuhan Municipal medical waste treatment weakness. Across the country, in 22 cities, we saw an overload of treatment of medical waste, and 28 other cities have been working at a full capacity in the treatment of medical wastes. And this has spoken to the fact that we are lagging behind in the capacity in treating medical waste. On the 22nd of February, on the work group meeting of the Political Bureau, President Xi emphasized the importance to make up for this weakness in the treatment of medical waste as well as the daily wastes. Ministry of Ecological Environment, along with the 10 ministries and departments, worked together and issued a work plan to enhance the treatment of medical waste. According to this work plan, by the end of this year, in each prefecture-level city, we will have built a standardized treatment plant for the handling of medical waste. And by 2020, by the June of 2022, across the country, in all the counties, from collection to transportation to treatment of medical waste, a scientific system as such must be established so that all medical wastes can be dealt with scientifically, safely in the transfer, transportation, and treatment, thus ensuring ecological environment safety. That's my answer. Thank you. Thank you. Next question, please. Journalist from the 4th row on the left side. China environmental news. Since the outbreak of the epidemic, in many cities there were large scales of disinfection and sanitation. There has been a bigger amount of sewage water discharged from the hospitals. Ministry of Ecological Environment did some environmental monitoring. What were the parameters used? What were the results from the survey and monitoring? I'd like to ask Director Zhao Qingying to take the question. Thank you for your question. After the outbreak of the epidemic, Ministry of Ecological Environment paid great attention to the assurance of environmental safety. On 31st of January, we issued emergency monitoring plan for environmental monitoring in the context of COVID-19 response. In this work plan, we've clarified efforts on 3 fronts. First, the drinking water, the source of drinking water is the priority of our monitoring. Previously, in our daily and routine monitoring, we had a set of parameters, but we've added residue chlorine and biotoxicity monitoring indicators. Second, we've optimized the automatic monitoring network to alleviate the epidemic prevention control efforts and disinfection sanitation methods impact on our automatic monitors. Starting from the 20th of January to the 7th of March.
表明
The monitoring data shows that the 337 prefecture level and above cities have had the percentage of 84.5%, up by 11 percentage points compared with the same period last year. So we enjoy better weather and the climate, the environment, and the PM 2.5 had dropped by 19.6% year on year. In terms of the water, the over 1,800 monitoring sites showed that grade 1 to grade 3 water quality accounted for over 80%, and grade 4 and grade 5 represented 11.7%, and the worst ones accounted only for about 2%. So compared with the same period last year, the grade 1 to 3 has been up by 8.5 percentage points. The middle ones, the grade 4 and 5, dropped by 1.5 percentage point, and the worst ones had been dropped by 4 percentage points. So based on the water quality monitoring results on the drinking water sources, we altogether conducted over more than 11,000 such monitors, and we didn't identify any incidents that has done harm to the water quality. We have also conducted more than 1,100 water quality survey and monitoring concerning the chlorine content in the water, and 2.8% of the monitorings have found the chlorine content, but this is lower than the standard requirement of the water plants, so that does not affect the quality of water to be treated in the water plant. Let's continue. On the left, on the fourth row, the gentleman, the lady, please. I'm with 健康报. My question is about the wasted masks. In some localities, we can't find any dedicated treatment facility for the used masks, and the used masks are usually mixed with other household wastes. So, are there any people to pick out those used masks, and how are they treated? Thank you, Mr. Liu. Thank you very much for your question. I can see that this is a question of common concern, and we have urged the localities to make preparations, and a differentiated approach has been identified, especially in key major areas. There should be dedicated facility to collect and treat the used masks. For the used masks in the medical facilities, they can be treated as medical wastes. For used masks in the quarantine venues or in the households, they should also be separately collected and soundly treated. For used masks in the residence communities and the office buildings. Such used masks can be treated as wastes of other kinds, but there should also be disinfection conducted. Once the used masks are in the incineration plants, in the light of the features of the used masks, the incineration should be different from the common household wastes. So there should be appropriate arrangement. And for some specific venues or localities, there should be a special arrangement made to ensure the used masks are well treated or soundly treated and incinerated. And also, such incineration should be ensured to avoid the secondary pollution, and the discharge of the incinerated masks. We hope that all can be conducted automatically to avoid any potential cross-infection. We've also strengthened the personal protection for the sanitation workers in the process. Thank you. Let's continue on the right, on the fifth row. The gentleman, please. Good afternoon. I'm with China Construction News. My question is, Premier Li emphasizes repeatedly that the need for PPEs of the frontline workers should be guaranteed. The sanitation workers' PPE are really important. So I would like to know, in order to ensure their PPE requirements are met, what are the specific measures? We will continue to have Mr. Liu to answer the question. Thank you very much for your care for the sanitation workers. The sanitation workers, especially those working in the front line, are truly of an elder age group compared with the common population, and they are also quite vulnerable to the epidemic. Throughout the country, we find that in the first few days of the Lunar New Year, the inventory or the stockpiling of the PPEs for sanitary workers was not adequate, exerting a fairly big pressure on this regard. That's why my ministry, together with the Ministry of Information Technology and Industry, and also the relevant government authorities, have strengthened the coordination and the transportation of such PPEs for the sanitation workers have been prioritized. This has greatly contributed to the pressure ease. Furthermore, we've also engaged the trade associations to identify the gap and ensure the adequate supply. Later, with the recovery of the PPE's production, sanitation workers now find their PPEs quite adequately and stably provided. Thank you. Okay, let's continue. On the left, on the fifth row, the reporter in white, please. Thank you. With Shenzhen Satellite TV. Previously, some experts point out that there could be fecal-mouth transmission of the COVID-19. And that's why people were concerned that the epidemic may be spread through the sewage system. So how about the countermeasures in this regard? We will continue to have Mr. Liu to answer the question. Thank you. Whatever the public wants, we will try our best to satisfy their need. So in the light of the potential complaint and problem, we have strengthened the relevant efforts. First, we strengthen the treatment and the disinfection of the public toilets, especially the sewage system in the toilets, in the public toilets, and also in the public toilets in the medical facilities. Take Beijing as an example. Throughout the municipality, more than 6,000 public toilets have been kept in operation in a sound way.
In Wangfujing, Tiananmen Square, railway stations near the major shopping malls, in places like this, there has been a bigger frequency in the disinfection and sanitation of these public toilets. You may have already noticed that in winter time, usually there are the door covers for the heating requirement of the public toilets. But during this epidemic, the Beijing Sanitation Authority has removed the door covers, the door curtains, where there were the heating conditioners. Ventilation was also more frequent in these public toilets to minimize the opportunistic infection in the mobile camping hospitals. A total number of 1,600 plus mobile public toilets in the mobile camping hospitals. On daily basis, 90 sanitation workers and several dozens of sanitation vehicles were used for the disinfection and the cleaning of these public toilets. So there were rigorous measures followed for the cleaning and disinfection of the public toilets. In the interest of time, we can take last two questions. Journalist from the fifth row on the right side. From Wenhui Bao, classification of wastes have become a new practice. What are the roles of waste classification in the prevention against the epidemic? I'd like to ask DDG Liu Lifeng to answer the question. Since 2016, Ministry of Housing, Urban Rural Development have been following closely the central government and President Xi's emphasis on the waste classification in 16 cities, including municipalities. Some facial achievements have been scored in the community waste classification. Over the years, we have been urging localities to step up community waste classification. We've emphasized that we should count on communities to carry out the work because all the urban rural citizens live in communities. If you look at the amount of the community wastes, that has been enormous. Everyone should be involved in the classification of community wastes. As we promoted the job, we emphasized the two aspects. The Community Management Committee and the community members and volunteers have been mobilized to join efforts to classify community wastes. We anchored on these efforts to promote grassroots level community management. In the epidemic prevention and control, some cities have already shown that the classification of community wastes played an important role in the prevention and control of the epidemic. Guangzhou City said the roles are in the four aspects. First, there is the storage of staff, in particular party members, because the Communist Party members have already been working in communities promoting the wastes classification. So after the outbreak of the epidemic, they were the first batch of staff mobilized to be engaged in prevention and control. Second, the community garbage classification in Guangzhou City have established a coordinated working mechanism in over 1,300 communities in Guangzhou. After the outbreak of the epidemic, these existing coordinated working committees shifted into the commando centers, the command centers for the prevention and control of the epidemic. Third, the garbage classification mechanism has provided an effective route of dissemination of information. We emphasized individual households must be informed of the garbage classification knowledge. So during our original efforts, we have been informing individual households through this working mechanism of garbage classification after the outbreak of the epidemic. This information dissemination mechanism was utilized to disseminate prevention and control knowledge. Fourth, the good habit nurtured during the garbage classification has found a solid foundation for the prevention and control of the epidemic. In Guangzhou City, there is now the requirement of timely and regular littering of garbage and downstairs. So there are certain time slots for certain floors of residents to litter their garbage. These routine efforts have also helped sanitation workers to collect the garbage from communities as scheduled. So we believe the original garbage classification mechanism have come into a big role in the prevention and control of the epidemic. Thank you. The final question for the day. Journalist from the fifth row on the left side, please. Thank you. China Daily. Some believe with resumption of the business, there might be the resurgence of contamination, but China braces for economic restarting. So how can we ensure the achievements of phase goals without contamination risk? I'd like to ask Director Zhao Qunyin to take the last question for the day. Thank you for your question. On 3rd of March, Ministry of Ecological Environment issued and circulated ecological environment protection opinions on combining prevention and control and economic development. In this set of opinions, 100% of accuracy and completeness in the treatment of medical solid wastes and medical water, precision, sewage and waste management were emphasized to realize the phasal targets of the 13th five-year plan in the critical battle in precision for pollution control. We've also worked out a negative list system that as long as the enterprises are qualified, we don't have to conduct further examinations for the enterprises who are Korean and who have contributed to the production of prevention and control supplies. We do not have to carry out field investigation.